Small claims court is what you often see on TV courtroom shows. It's for relatively small disputes where you don't need a lawyer and are suing someone for an amount of $7,500 or less. Small claims court is where you go when you have been financially harmed. For example, if your landlord didn't give you your security deposit back, your mechanic didn't fix your car, or your contractor didn't finish the work on your house. You can't sue for non-financial problems. For instance, you can't sue your neighbor for playing loud music at night. While it may annoy you, you haven't been monetarily harmed. A small claims judge can only award money, not order someone to do something or stop doing something. Each township has its own small claims court. Different courts have different procedures, so you need to familiarize yourself with the requirements of the court where you will file your lawsuit. The following videos describe the process to ensure you're following the requirements for your township. To start a small claims suit, you need to identify the person or company directly responsible for your damage. Lynn took her car to Monster Car Shop where Frank was supposed to fix the radiator. A day after Lynn gets her car back, the radiator is still broken and her car breaks down. Lynn tries to talk it over with Frank, but he refuses to fix it or refund her money. Now Lynn wants to file a small claims suit. Lynn must first determine whom to sue. While she dealt with Frank, she must sue the company he works for. In order to sue the company, she needs to know two things: the company's official corporate name and its registered agent, the person that receives legal documents for that business. The actual business may have a different name from what's on its sign. Lynn checks the county clerk's website and discovers that Monster Car Shop is registered as Monster Repairs, Inc. She then checks the Secretary of State's website and finds that the company's lawyer, Merrill, is its registered agent. Now Lynn knows who to sue and who to send documents to. That makes her the plaintiff and Monster Repairs, Inc. the defendant. The next step is for Lynn to determine the damages, the amount she's going to sue Monster Repairs, Inc. for. If Lynn is suing to get back the money she originally paid to get her radiator fixed, she must show the receipt from Monster Car Shop. If Lynn is suing for the money it will take to get her car fixed at another garage, she must show estimates from 2 or 3 other mechanics. Either way, it's important to show a reasonable basis for the money you are suing for. It is possible the judge will award less than what you ask for, but will never award more. Make sure to calculate an amount that will actually cover your damages. Lynn has determined that Monster Repairs, Inc. is responsible for her damages, and that Merrill is the company's registered agent. The next step is to write a demand letter addressed to the company and mail it to the registered agent. The letter must say 3 things. Lynn believes Monster Repairs, Inc. owes her $2,300. The company owes her the money because it did not fix her car. If it does not refund Lynn's money, she will sue the company in small claims court. Lynn downloads a sample demand letter from the self-help centers and customizes it to her situation. She makes 1 copy for herself and sends the demand letter to Merrill via certified mail, since she will need proof of mailing later. Remember, different courts have different procedures, so Lynn must follow the requirements of the court where she is filing her lawsuit. After the required amount of days have passed, Lynn files her suit. To do so, she needs a copy of the demand letter, her proof of mailing, and a complaint form, which she can download from the self-help center. Lynn makes sure she downloads the correct complaint for her court because different courts might have different forms. The complaint form must be filled out very neatly. Once Lynn has all these materials, she can file them and pay the filing fee. If Lynn wins her case, the court will award her the fee back. After Lynn sends the company a demand letter and files a complaint form with the court, she gets back the court-stamped complaint document. The next step in her small claims lawsuit is called service, which is how the plaintiff informs the defendant that they are being sued. Someone other than Lynn must deliver specific documents to the defendant. Since Lynn is suing a company, she should serve the company's registered agent, Attorney Merrill, or one of the company's officers, like Jim, the president of Monster Repairs, Inc. The defendant must be served with the complaint form, instructions for what to do next, and an answer form. Examples of these documents can be downloaded from the Self-Help Center website. The most reliable way to serve your complaint is through a sheriff, constable, or a process server, a company that specializes in service. If you can afford it, use one of these options to ensure service is handled correctly. There is a charge to use these resources, but if Lynn wins, she can get that money back as part of the judgment. Lynn can also have anyone she knows who is 18 or older, and ideally not a relative, serve the defendant. Lynn gives her friend Debbie the documents, and Debbie delivers them to Merrill's office. Debbie must hand the documents directly to Merrill or someone authorized to receive them, like her assistant. She cannot leave the papers with Merrill's neighbors or at her door. Once Merrill is served, Debbie needs to fill out an official form called an affidavit describing how she served Merrill. Lynn must then file the affidavit with the court. If Monster Repairs, Inc. does not file an answer form in the required time, Lynn can file for a default judgment, which means she wins the case automatically because the company did not take the required actions to defend itself. Many small claims courts require mediation before the hearing. Mediation is a chance to sit down with the defendant in the presence of a neutral party and try to resolve the case without bringing it in front of a judge. A benefit of mediation is that the plaintiff can negotiate things other than money and resolve the case without the time and expense of an entire lawsuit. Lynn sued Monster Repairs, Inc. for not fixing her car properly. Before mediation, Lynn collects the documents that can help tell her story, like the receipts from Monster Repairs, Inc., photos showing the damages, and estimates from other mechanics. In mediation, both sides meet in the presence of a neutral mediator who facilitates the conversation. Lynn will negotiate with Jim, the president of Monster Repairs, Inc., because she sued the company and not the mechanic individually. Lynn and Jim tell their stories, present their documents to each other, and discuss their terms for settlement. Lynn tells Jim that she will drop the lawsuit if Monster Repairs, Inc. will fix her car properly this time. There are 3 possible scenarios for mediation. Both sides agree to settle, the case is resolved, and the mediator prepares an agreement. The case can't be resolved and moves forward to a hearing. If the defendant wins the case, you do not get any money. If you win the case, the defendant must pay you. Since Lynn and Jim couldn't settle things during mediation, the case moves forward and a hearing date is set. To get an idea of what to expect in her own case, Lynn sits in on some small claims hearings. She then prepares all her documents in advance, just as she did for mediation, except now she organizes her documents into 4 tabbed binders. One for her, one for Monster Repairs, Inc., one for the judge, and one to submit for the court's record. She also reaches out to witnesses, people who saw what happened and can clearly explain the sequence of events. For example, the mechanic's assistant witnessed the dispute but says he is not willing to testify. Lynn can ask the court to issue a subpoena, an order that will compel the assistant to participate in the hearing. At the hearing, the plaintiff usually presents her case first. The judge asks questions to both sides. It's important to be direct, clear, and respectful when answering the judge's questions. Never interrupt the judge or the other side when they are speaking. After the judge has heard both sides and asked questions, she will decide the case and issue a judgment. If a judge rules against Lynn, she can appeal to the district court. This is not a new hearing, and she cannot present new evidence. It is simply another judge reviewing the evidence and arguments already presented. If the defendant appeals to the district court, he will have to pay a bond of $250 and the amount of any judgment awarded against him. If Lynn appeals, she will only pay the $250 bond. At the end of the case, the judge decides what happens to the bond. There is no guarantee that the person who posted the bond will get it back. If Lynn wins her case, it's up to her to collect. The court will not do it for her. There are different rules for collecting from a business or a person. For a person, a constable could serve his employer to garnish his wages. If the person believes his money is protected by law, he can file a claim of exemption to protect it from Lynn. For a business, Lynn can get the funds from its bank account. If Monster Repairs keeps cash on hand, she could also have the money taken out of the cash drawer by the constable. Lynn doesn't know where Monster Repairs banks, so she files a motion asking the court to set a judgment debtor exam for Jim, who she believes will know about Monster Repairs' finances. The court issues an order setting a hearing which Lynn needs to serve to Jim. She will follow the same service procedures outlined in Chapter 4. Jim needs to show up and answer questions about Monster Repairs' finances. Some judges ask all the questions at these hearings. Others leave it up to the plaintiff to ask the questions. To make sure she's ready, Lynn prepares a list of questions in advance. Lynn now has a judgment and Monster Repairs bank information. The next step is to prepare a series of collection documents and file them with the court. A sheriff or constable will then serve the documents to Monster Repairs Bank to collect the amount due.